Hey everyone, today I'm doing a video reviewing my opinion on the Nicolas Cage chapter and my opinion on the new perk changes right now. So let's start off with the Nicolas Cage chapter. Almighty God, Nicolas Cage is by far one of the best things that has ever come to this game. His perks are very fun and amazing, his voice lines, albeit rare, are very entertaining to listen to, and all in all has been such a blast to play with. Off topic, but the Survivor and Killer portraits have been updated, and I think they look good. And to those people who are like, oh my god, the portraits look ugly, I don't like them. I get that's your opinion, but they needed a change for once. And hearing them whine about portraits just shows how much the community just hates change sometimes. Anyway, getting off topic. I'm going to give my opinion on his perks and see where we go from here. Dramaturgy is by far one of the best exhaustion perks to ever come to this game. I wouldn't say better than Dead Hard, it is better than Current, or Sprint Burst I should say, but it is funny having a random effect happen every time you use the perk. I also like the idea of being exposed mid-chase when you use it, meaning you can fuck yourself over, it just sounds so good. And getting the random items from using it is really fun, because it kind of gambles on whether or not you get a terrible item or a broken item. I recently got into a match against the buff Sadako and got a purple flashlight with range add-ons, I'm not kidding. Scene Partner is an alright perk. I do like the idea of screaming and seeing the kill of Zora, but I wouldn't run it personally if you're trying to get a flashlight save, because screaming constantly doesn't really help in that case. Although it is a good information perk after the cooldown, because you can loop the killer at Killer Shack for example, and once the cooldown ends you can mind game the killer if they don't know how to mind game already. Now, Plot Twist. Plot Twist is one of the funniest perks I have ever used. Being able to basically kill yourself and make no noise is hilarious, and being able to heal back up to healthy is a nice change of pace. Although I am really thankful they didn't make it to where if you got down by the killer, you can use it that way, because that's just broken. Alright, that's enough for the Nick Cage review, and I would say 10 out of 10. This chapter basically saved Dead by Daylight. And I'm not saying the recent chapter in Transmission didn't, I'm just saying people were a lot more hyped about Nick Cage being in the game that they kind of forgot Singularity was in it. Now on to my review of the perk buffs and nerfs. We're gonna start off with the killer, and I gotta say, the twins perk Coup de Grace, I'm pretty sure I'm butchering that name, was honestly a welcome change despite me not owning the twins. So basically they increased the token count you can earn from doing generators, and your lunge can now go 10% further, which is nice. Claustrophobia or Cruel Limits got a buff, where whenever a generator is completed, all windows get blocked from all survivors, which is insanely good. I would use Claustrophobia on Huntress because it shut down loops easier, but it never really helped me outside of Chase, where each time a generator is completed I just see random window vaults. Hangman's Trick has now become a Scourge Hook, and good luck finding any use for this, because it's basically Awaken Awareness, just worse, because now you can see survivors that are near a Scourge Hook, which is basically useless unless you're actively going for the people who are standing near the hook. Territorial Imperative didn't really change much, except you can now be slightly closer to the basement and see the survivors going inside, which is pretty much useless, so that's why I'm sticking with the idea that it needs to be reworked. Remember Me got a massive buff that basically makes exit gates take longer to open if you hook the Obsession enough times. This perk basically sounds horrid to face against paired with No Way Out and other in-game perks, but it is a nice chase of pace from the gen rushing meta, because now you can actively punish survivors for gen rushing with this perk. Hex Crowd Control had needed a buff, and we finally got it, which instead of blocking the window for 14 seconds, it is now 60 seconds. So whenever a survivor loops Shack, it's basically bye-bye window. It's a needed change, and I'm all in it for the killer side. And lastly, Trail of Torment got a buff, and I gotta say, it actually sounds pretty scary to face against, because if you don't know if the killer's running trail, you can assume that one of the survivors is running situational awareness, better together, and suddenly, boom, the killer jump scares you out of nowhere. So, a very fun perk so far. Alright, now we are going into the survivor buffs and nerfs, so let's see what they did there. Prove Thyself is up first, and right off the bat this change did absolutely nothing. The speed nerf isn't even noticeable, and it's still going to be a problem regardless. But the one thing they did change was the blood point thing, and I really don't know why they're doing that. Next up we got We're Gonna Live Forever, and it wasn't even a nerf or buff, just reworded it to say all blinds affect the killer and not just flashlights. I'm putting these two together because their buffs were technically the same, and that was the buff to Blast Mine and Wiretap. They increased the time from 60 seconds to 120 seconds, so making the duration last longer, and it is wonderful because instead of not being able to blind the killer because they don't kick the generator, they basically made it to where you can get an almost guaranteed blind from Blast Mine. Wiretapped, you can see the killer's aura with the generator a little longer, so that's good too. Next up, we got Saboteur, and it basically increased the sabotage speed slightly, and I think it gave it a shorter cooldown, I don't know. But in my honest opinion, I really don't think I'm going to see Saboteur at all in any of my Survivor matches, so... Breakout is next, and so far the change made it more high risk, high reward because they increased the speed of the wiggle progression when you slightly closer to the killer, so that was a pretty good change. Wiggle was already such a weak mechanic because it barely works half the time, and whenever you get a full wiggle bar, the game just says fuck you and now you're on a hook. Rant over, we got the new buckle up buff, which is basically old borrowed time except with picking up survivors off the ground. I really don't know how I feel about this change because it went from being a useless perk to probably becoming meta, and that scares me because We're Gonna Live Forever already has a built-in soul guard, and being able to basically borrow time your way out of the killer's grasp seems a bit busted to me. The new smash hit has a buff which increased the speed, and the exhaustion timer was reduced down to 20 seconds, making this perk less cheeks to use. I don't think I'll see this perk any more than I already do, which is not much, so yeah. And finally, we got the Spine Shield change, which basically got rid of the visual terror radius since they already added that base kit in the settings menu, so nothing really changed there. I really want them to add the Volt Speed back because what they did to this perk was absolutely disgusting. Well, that's going to do it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I think these buffs and nerfs are very interesting to say the least, and yeah, stay awesome, guys.